Oh, here we go. I want us to all get in there, so I'm sitting. Let me tell them that we have
Good morning. Welcome to the first annual White Coat Ceremony honoring the Pfeiffer University Master of Science in Physician Assistant Studies inaugural cohort class of 2022. I am Dr. Brenda Diaz, and I have the distinct honor to lead this program as its founding chair and program director. Today, we are joined by Dr. Christopher Bowe, Dean of Graduate Studies, Dr. Michael Thompson, Interim Vice President of Academic Affairs and Provost, and the President of Pfeiffer University, Dr. Scott Bullard, who will address you in a few minutes. We are also joined by the distinguished faculty and staff of the program, Dr. Cynthia Jamison, Medical Director, Dr. Tom Earnhardt, Director of Clinical Education, Professor Dale Patterson, Principal Faculty, Mrs. Deidre Harwood, Admissions Support Coordinator, and Mrs. Amy Dry, the Administrative Assistant for the program. We also welcome those who are joining us via live stream. Our hearts yearn for you to be here in person to witness this occasion, but we know you are here in spirit. On behalf of the faculty, staff, and student body of the Physician Assistant Program, we would like to express our deepest gratitude for all those who freely gave of their time, talent, and treasure in the development and implementation of this program. Our deepest thank you. The White Coat Ceremony is a time-honored tradition. This sacred moment marks a milestone in our journey to becoming healers. Your journey, class of 2022, has been marked by extraordinary challenges. And yet, here you are. You are strong. You are determined. You are resilient. And I am honored to don you with your white coat this day. Now, please join me in welcoming the President of the Pfeiffer University, Dr. Scott Bullard.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this momentous occasion. I was not president of Pfeiffer University when this vision of a PA program in Stanley County was coming to shape and coming to fruition. I like to be transparent about that, but at the same time, I like to convey what an honor it is to have watched the building go up and to watch you, the students, the heart of the program, populate this facility and work with our faculty and lean into your calling. I'll remind you that over a year ago now, when we welcomed you to our Meisenheimer campus, I quoted my favorite educational psychologist who said that your calling is where your great giftedness intersects with the world's great need. Your great giftedness intersects with the world's great need. I'm pleased to say that if you've made it this far, your professors believe that you have indeed found the place where your great giftedness intersects with the world's great need. Liberal arts universities, unlike their larger public counterparts, which have very good reasons for existing, take pride in the fact that each professor knows your name and wants to help you work through your calling. And that sounds really great when I'm talking about it in eloquent terms from a pulpit. But the truth about mentoring is that it's hard work. And that we are we try to compliment you when you're obviously progressing, and we try to give you high marks on objective exams. But the truth is that early on, especially in a program as rigorous as this, it's also full of moments of correction, full of moments wherein a professor and a student has to decide whether it's a pat on the back that is needed or a kick in the fanny. And so I appreciate not only your academic giftedness, but if you've made it this far, you've also demonstrated the self-awareness to accept correction and to know that it is only for the good of you as a future physician assistant, and ultimately for the good of those who will come under your care in the future. I'm so proud that you've made it to this moment, the white coat ceremony. I want to also congratulate those listening or watching via live stream. These students do not go it alone. I know that we live in a society that values individual achievement, individual discipline, individual work ethic. But if we learn anything from Scripture in some ways, it is that we are in fact our brother's keeper. We are in fact our sister's keeper. And many of you are here today because you have someone financially supporting you through this program. Some of you don't have the benefit of having financial support in one way. You've had to get it in another way, but you have the constant encouragement of an undergraduate professor, or a parent, or a grandparent, or an aunt, or an uncle, or a friend who believes in you and who believes that you can do this. Emotional support, financial support, whatever that looks like for you. I want you to remember in this moment that you do not go it alone, that none of us go it alone. It's one reason I'm so proud of the Pfeiffer Albemarle Adopt a Student program that the local churches have engaged in this semester here for the first time. You are about to embark on a time-honored tradition. And I'm less familiar with the tradition than you are in this moment. But you are special because you are the first to embark upon that tradition in Pfeiffer's history and in the history of this county and this great city. I want you to go forward in the confidence that you have wonderful training, that you have wonderful mentors, and that you have amazing self-discipline. You have amazing minds and gifted minds. I want you to put the white coat on today. I want you to have confidence as you go into your clinical site rotations in May. Be willing to be corrected. Continue to feel like you must grow, and you must continue to lean in to the growth process, the education process. But also believe that your training that you've done here is real and worthy and valuable to you and to your future patients. I give a lot of presentations on you, about you, what cities you come from, what states you come from, what your average GPA is as a cohort, and where you might have graduated from in college. I'm very proud of all the work that you do. As you go into your clinical rotations this summer and lean into that part of your education, I want to read to you just a few lines from the founder of modern nursing. I know this is not a nursing pinning ceremony, but I want to read to you an essay, part of an essay from Florence Nightingale, an essay in which she quotes the most modern, contemporary scientific journals in her field, but also retains this knowledge of the best of our humanities tradition and literature that reminds us to care for one another. I want you to remember why it is you got into this in the first place. And here's a little bit from Nightingale. This is called the nurse's profession. It might as well be called the PA's profession as far as I'm concerned today. Here's one line. I want you to remember the words of the Apostle Paul, who says, I count not myself to have apprehended all things, but I do count myself as having apprehended one thing, and that is forgetting those things which are behind me and reaching forward to the things that are before me. I press on toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God. And then she asks her students, what calling can we have that would be higher than following God by caring about our brothers and sisters? And then she says, this is my favorite part, when the head and the hands are very full, as it is in our field, it is so easy, so very easy, if the heart has not an earnest purpose for God and for neighbor, to end up doing one's work only for oneself and not at all, even when we seem to be serving our neighbors, not at all for them or for our God. When heads and hands are very full, as you enter your rotations this May, as you leave this place, this fabulous rite of passage, and enter that clinical site instruction, your head and your hands are going to seem very full. Not to mention your other responsibilities, your friendships, your familial relationships. When head and hands are very full, remember that you do this for your neighbor, and remember that you have good teachers and good training to take with you. Keep those things at the forefront of your mind. I'm so thankful that you've called me here, asked me to participate today, and I'm so thankful for everyone's patience as I have gone on and on. But students, you're the first and you're special. And when your head and your hands are very full in May and June and in your career, remember your training and remember why you applied to this program in the first place. It's all about love of neighbor. And you have the gifts and the hearts to match those gifts, to execute those things very well. Thanks and good luck.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Earnhardt. I'm the Director of Clinical Education here at the Pfeiffer University PA program. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Dr. Michael Rulin. Dr. Rulin serves as Vice President of Medical Education at Atrium Health and as Director of the Charlotte Area Health Education Center. In his work at Atrium, he is responsible for the system's 2 colleges of health sciences, including the Carolinas Simulation Center. Dr. Rulin is particularly interested in quality, function, interconnectivity, and security of medical devices. He is a graduate of the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine and holds a Master's of Science degree in Healthcare Management from Harvard School of Public Health. He is trained in general pediatrics at Children's Hospital National Medical Center in Washington, D.C., and practiced as a pediatrician, a pediatric hospitalist, and a child abuse specialist. Dr. Rulin has held national leadership positions in the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Society of Hospital Medicine, the Accreditation Review Commission on the Education of Physician Assistants, and the Accreditation Review Committee on Accreditation Council of Continuing Medical Education. Dr. Rulin.
Dr. Earnhardt, I hope you can hear me. Is this coming through? Wonderful. Thank you so much. Faculty and staff, university leadership, families and friends, all those especially who have accompanied these students on their academic journeys, and most importantly, students. I deeply appreciate the opportunity and privilege to be with you today to celebrate this inaugural White Coat ceremony and your important career milestones, students. The history of White Coat ceremonies is rather interesting. The first such event was introduced for a class of medical students in 1993 by Dr. Arnold P. Gold at the Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons. The ceremony has been broadly adopted among numerous other institutions and health disciplines and is now celebrated around the world. And today, you join countless others who have experienced this ceremony. Although this has been postponed a bit by the pandemic, we gather today to celebrate your White Coat ceremony to mark the transition from training in the basic sciences to clinical training experiences. Your transition from student and scientist to an artful healer. I wish I could be there with you to experience this in person. And someday soon, the pandemic will be over and all of us can enjoy being face-to-face once again. White has come to symbolize a number of key commitments for all healthcare workers. Until the adoption of antiseptic practices, the traditional garb of physicians was black. And this was on purpose because black covered up a personal history of numerous prior patient encounters, and I will leave that to your imagination. White was adopted as evidence of the first commitment to patients to prevent the transmission of illness by caregivers themselves, because it became obvious if that caregiver was capable of passing something untoward onto patients. So first of all, White has represented a commitment to patients. And I would say that others have commented that these commitments extend to commitments to one another as colleagues and allies, commitment to your faculty, staff, advisors, and mentors to go out and be exemplary examples of the alumni of your program, and a commitment to families, communities, and students, also to yourselves. Today, I'd like to focus on some additional words that are also associated with putting on the white coat. I'd like to briefly describe the right stuff of your role as physician assistants by highlighting 6 additional characteristics of those commitments. The first is courage. Your white coat is not a magic shield that protects you from conditions that you may treat. I want you to absorb the thought that the physician who first identified severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 was disciplined by the Chinese government for identifying the initial coronavirus variant as a threat to public health, was discredited, and he died from COVID. The first US health worker who was lost to COVID was a hospital custodian who died on March 17th, 2020, nearly exactly a year ago. Since that time, the Kaiser Health News and The Guardian have collaboratively compiled a list of more than 3,500 US healthcare workers who have been sacrificed to the pandemic. Courage, bravery, valor are all words that have been used to describe the efforts of the health workforce over the last year. And while you will continue to struggle with COVID for a while, you also join the ranks of those individuals who fought Ebola virus, SARS, polio, diphtheria, pertussis, measles, and many more transmissible diseases. But courage is not just related to the personal health risk you may incur. You will also have to have the courage to tell a mother that she is about to lose a child, a family that a grandfather is ready to pass, and a spouse that a trauma victim will never walk again. I can assure you that these take far greater courage than facing down infectious diseases. The second is integrity. The past year has taught us what happens when clinicians subjugate their clinical integrity to serve other agendas. No matter the consequences, you must ensure that you are honest and forthright with your patients and their families. You must ensure that you accurately represent the science and art of medicine, and your record keeping is accurate so that public health officials have the statistics they need to inform policy. You must not misinterpret or bend scientific fact to suit any other agenda. If you cannot be honest with yourself and others, you will do harm. Your white coat should be a beacon that proclaims your integrity. The next is compassion. Be compassionate in your approach to your patients, colleagues, teachers, and communities. Most important of all, you will make mistakes, and you must learn to be compassionate with yourselves. An old joke was that doctors bury their mistakes. And I'm sorry to report to you that sometimes their mistakes bury doctors. You're human. You are not infallible. You must grant yourself the opportunity to forgive you, just as you will need to forgive the cranky old guy at the end of the hallway or the patient that is angry with you for telling her that her injuries will leave her with a permanent limp. And yes, be compassionate with those whose belief structures do not coincide with your own. Resilience is an important word. No human being can be completely self-sufficient. We're not hardwired that way. We need routine sleep, good diets, and meaningful physical and intellectual exercise. We need our spouses, our parents, our children, our extended families, and our friends to recreate and restore ourselves when the days and weeks are long. We need our relationship with God to sustain our souls. The rates of burnout among health professionals have never been higher than during the last year. However, if you are diligent in practicing mindfulness and building resilience, you will be rewarded with a long and sustainable career. Privilege is a bit of an odd word to introduce during a ceremony of this nature. But I want to share with you that when an individual or a family is dealing with a significant health event, they are in their most vulnerable and most susceptible state. Never forget the privilege they will grant you during these times. They will tell you things that have sometimes not been shared with any other person. Strong men will weep, and strong women will express their deepest fears. It is the truest privilege and a gift to us to be with patients and their families during these times. And finally, joy. You will also be part of the most joyous moments in your patients' lives. You will witness the gasp of relief when you say it wasn't cancer. You will sit with a mother and father to tell them that their newborn twins are going to be just fine. You will announce that the stroke victim has just awakened or can understand what is being said and can move everything. And you will be caught up in the joy of good news. I can't imagine all the clinical developments that will take place as you pursue your careers. I can't imagine your personal accomplishments. I can't imagine the things that you will be able to do in 2050 that we can only dream about today. But I can imagine that each of you will positively impact thousands upon thousands of individuals in your clinical lives. And I encourage you to tell your story about you and your own work at the end of each day. The best of these stories will oddly and unexpectedly unfold at times you spiritually need them most. You will recall them with a mixture of humility and a broad range of emotions. And I'll briefly share an example from my life. Just before COVID set in, I was asked to perform a wedding for a niece. That required me to go out and become a licensed minister in the state of Ohio. It's not a hard thing to do, I assure you, and I agreed to perform the wedding. At the reception afterwards, I was approached by two families. The first was the family of a young child that had experienced a very severe metabolic disease very early on in my career. And the family and I struggled to keep her alive for approximately 22 months. And we lost that battle. The family approached me because I hadn't seen them since the death of their child. And they came to talk to me about their healing journey and about how grateful that they had been that we had come to know one another and for my involvement in their lives. This wedding also provided another gift for me. While I was there, I was approached by another woman who said, you know, Dr. Ruhlin, you don't remember me. I bet you don't remember me. And quite honestly, I couldn't. And she said, you know, I wanted to tell you that when my child was a young baby, he got very sick. He couldn't stop vomiting, and he was taken to an outlying hospital and sent into where you work. And I had trouble believing you that he had a very bad intestinal blockage. You convinced me, you worked with me. We ended up sending him to a large referral center, and he has a very big scar to show for that. But I want you to meet him because he's here today. And she introduced me to a strapping 6 foot 2 inch tall young man who was in his first year of dental school. I can't tell you the times that I've had the opportunity to reflect on stories like that and to give myself a pat on the back. And the reason I share this with you is that you need to do that as well. Because if you fail to do that, you will be less sustainable in your careers. As you depart this ceremony today, clad in white, do not forget the meaning of the color and the power of the charge placed on your shoulders. I wish you long, amazing professional journeys sustained by commitment, courage, integrity, compassion, resilience, privilege, joy, and a multitude of your own personal stories. You have my warmest congratulations.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Rulin, for those words of encouragement. And now I would like to ask our faculty to take your positions. Okay. I present to you the class of 2022 for the white coat ceremony. Laurel Barnett is from Archdale, North Carolina. She received a BS in biology from the University of North Carolina. I present to you Laurel Barnett. Marissa Cook. She comes from Willisford, South Carolina. She received a BS in biology from the University of South Carolina at Columbia. I present to you Marissa Cook. Kayla Donnelly. She comes from Charlotte, North Carolina. She received a BS in chemistry from the University of North Carolina State University. I present to you Kayla Donnelly. Samantha Gullidge. She comes from Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in exercise science from the College of Charleston. I present to you Samantha Gullidge. Dalton Hams comes from Fort Mill, South Carolina. He received a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from the University of South Carolina at Columbia. I present to you Dalton Hams. Rachel Kiker. She comes from Monroe, North Carolina. She received her BS in biological sciences from North Carolina State University. I present to you Rachel Kiker. Kayla Miles comes from Watertown, New York. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Exercise Science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I present to you Kayla Miles. Rachel Nance comes from Norwood, North Carolina. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in biology from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I present to you Rachel Nance. Nak Nguyen comes from Charlotte, North Carolina. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in kinesiology from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I present to you Nak Nguyen. Megan Norris. She comes from Burlington, North Carolina. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in biology and psychology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I present to you Megan Norris. Faith Presley comes from Monroe, North Carolina. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in emergency medicine from Western Carolina University. I present to you Faith Presley. Darren Ramirez comes from Siler City, North Carolina. He received his BS in exercise science from Pfeiffer University. I present to you Darren Ramirez. Hunter Rogers comes from Concord, North Carolina. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in biology from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. I present to you Hunter Rogers. Elizabeth Saucedo comes from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. She received a Bachelor of Science degree in Spanish from Georgia State University. I present to you Elizabeth Saucedo. Robert Schwartz comes from Albemarle, North Carolina. He received a Bachelor of Science in Human Biology from North Carolina State University. I present to you Robert Schwartz. Morgan Sachs comes from Irmo, South Carolina. She received her BS in exercise science from the University of South Carolina at Columbia. I present to you Morgan Sachs. Cheryl Steele comes from Sanford, North Carolina. She received her Bachelor of Science in Emergency Medicine from Western Carolina University. I present to you Cheryl Steele. Emily Womble comes from Raleigh, North Carolina. She received her BS in Biological Sciences from Campbell University. I present to you Emily Womble. Nathan Woodward comes from Wilmington, North Carolina. He received his Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Stephen F. Austin State University. I present to you Nathan Woodward. And now I will turn the program over to Dr. Brenda Diaz. Can we hear a round of applause for our class of 2022?
I'd like to invite the class of 2022 to rise for the reading and taking of our oath. I'd also like to invite those physician assistants who are present to rise as well and take the oath along with our students. As well, I'd like to invite those who are watching and joining us via live stream, those physician assistants, to take the oath along with us. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. As a physician assistant, I will hold as my primary responsibility the health, safety, welfare, and dignity of all human beings. I will uphold the tenets of patient autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. I will recognize and promote the value of diversity. I will treat equally all persons who seek my care. I will hold in confidence the information shared in the course of practicing medicine. I will assess my personal capabilities and limitations, striving always to improve my medical practice. I will actively seek to expand my knowledge and skills, keeping abreast of advances in medicine. I will work with other members of the healthcare team to provide compassionate and effective care of patients. I will use my knowledge and experience to contribute to an improved community. I will respect my professional relationship with the physician. I will share and expand knowledge within the profession. Thank you. You may be seated. In January of 2020, during the orientation, seems like a lifetime away, I invited you to look at your hands. And I'd like you to look at your hands today. Yours are the hands of a healer. You have been gifted with the gift of healing. And now today, more than ever, I have seen that in you. I have seen how you care for each other. I have seen how you care for us as a faculty. It is so evident and real. And it's truly been my honor to join you on this journey. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds, especially the upcoming year when you're out on clinical rotations. I would like to take this moment to speak a blessing over you. May he who created the marvel of the human body grant you his wisdom to practice the art of healing with grace. May his light always shine upon you and give you peace. With this, our first annual white coat ceremony is concluded. I thank you all for attending. This has been a wonderful inaugural white coat ceremony. Thank you. And thank you to all who are watching on via live stream. Have a good day. Please rise. Okay, we are